comments.
So can you tell us what they agreed to do?
Oh, right, yeah, that was supposed to be in the video. I think I skipped over that slide, but these are the 7 elements of the plan. You had environmental interests pushing for, and the Yakima Indian Nation to push for this fish passage and habitat enhancement. You had the irrigators pushing for storage so that they would have a more secure supply of water. And you had the state government and federal government pushing for these last 3 because they saw this as the most cost-effective way to tackle this problem. And that 8th element that I mentioned earlier, the land purchase, the land acquisition, that was added later.
So do you think that in terms of sort of negotiating positions, that they all came together? Was it because they all would lose? Everyone would be in a bad position if there was no agreement. That
yes.
Is that sort of a thinking that anybody had veto power if they didn't get something out of it, and that would cause hurt to everybody else?
Yes, that sense of the best alternative to
negotiations.
Yeah. The environmental impact statement that kind of embodied the agreement. It studies what an EIS. What an EIS has is a proposed action and a I don't remember what exactly it's called, but what the results would be under no action. And an EIS recommends one of those alternatives, and that EIS recommended. That's the study that the State Department pushed forward. They recommended this integrated approach, which led directly to the integrated plan in 2009.
The outcome is great, and it sounds really utopian almost, the way in which it worked through. Did you look at any sort of op-eds or any kind of public opinion of the plan? Was there dissent from other groups?
Right, so the main dissent was from local environmental groups who did not have a seat at the table in the planning of it, and because they were concerned about the effects of having new storage, new dams being put up, and on the other end of the spectrum, you have the Yakima Basin Storage Alliance, who is actually a part of the work group and decided that they wanted the plan to move forward. They still don't think that it does enough in terms of securing enough water for irrigation interests, and so they're still pushing for more and more storage.
This is more about your methodology. Can you talk a little bit about how easy it was to find the people to talk to and to get them to talk to you, and that, because I know a lot of students, when they think about doing qualitative interviews, they shy away sometimes.
Yeah, so first I identified the Yarbwet work group members that I wanted to talk to. What I did was I first actually sought out someone who was not on the work group. So first I interviewed a newspaper reporter who has followed this plan through, who I identified and who followed this plan not just the plan, but efforts in the basin since 1977, when that, he just retired last year actually. So I was fortunate enough to talk to him, and he helped me identify key stakeholders, key people he thought were important in the plan, and from there I kept asking people at the end of my interviews, do you recommend, who else do you recommend I talk to identify the really salient people in the work group?
And everyone was pretty amenable to talking with you and then get back to you. And
oh yeah.
it was great.
So I reached out to 20 people. 16 of them responded. Two of them decided not to go through with the interview. So that's how I ended up at 14.
So when you do the interviews, do you record the interviews and then the software analyzes it, and how do you ensure the accuracy of what was said, given that people talk in different ways and everything?
Oh, I typed them all out. Yeah.
And how do you ensure the accuracy was the next?
Yeah. That's how you talk about yourself.
Yeah. I had the option of outsourcing it, but I felt that if I did it myself, also didn't have the money for it. But I felt that if I did it myself, it would better acquaint me with the data.
Does the work group still exist too?
Yes. So now they're in the implementation phase. So now they're identifying specific projects to move forward on.
Aldric, what do you think you gained the most from this entire research project for your future? Did you gain the most either for your future, either the research process or bringing it all together or studying something in depth? What will you take away from this and look back in 5 years once you've recovered from actually producing it?
Wow. I think, I guess a better insight into how people, like how negotiations work in the real world, quote unquote, and time management. Not sure, but
that's a great insight.
yeah, it's a good question. I also gained just so like I said earlier, my focus is on environmental policy, and before my Stanford and Washington experience, I really didn't know what I would focus on, but it was through them that I interned with the Department of the Interior, the specific branch that manages the Bureau of Reclamation. Actually, that's where I got my interest in water, and this thesis helped me to, I guess, get me more interested in water management, because it's not just about the water; it's about the people too. That's the part that drew me towards it.
One follow-up question on the methodology. You mentioned that you first talked with this journalist who gave you kind of a number of people
Yes.
who would be, and then each one of them perhaps referred you to yet another person. That has the potential, I guess, to introduce biases into your sample.
Yes.
If you had, say, one more year to go about it, would you try to gather data in some additional way? And if so, what?
It's a good question. So, I think I would. There's also the sense that because I was working with a lot of the more engaged people of the work group, I guess you could say, I didn't get this perspectives from the people who were on the fringe, sort of, the people that were not coordinating the plan. So the ecology, the State Department and federal government coordinated the plan, and Rosa and Yakima were the main instigators of that plan. But I didn't really get a chance to see the perspective from people who kind of just marched onto the plan afterwards, and I think that's who I would interview later. There's also been research done that the perspectives of the people who coordinate the watershed work group tend to be more extreme than the people who walk on afterwards.
Great, thank you all.